Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Azad Corner. My name is Kian Azad, and I will be your host as always. Today, I'm going to be talking about the 2024 US presidential election, which will be happening next week. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I will be going through what some of my predictions possibly can be, how I think the Senate may go, why I think certain things may go a certain way, and let's get right to it without any further ado. If we wind the clocks back a little bit more to 2023, there was a podcast between Patrick Bet-David and Ben Shapiro. In that podcast, Patrick Bet-David made a prediction that he felt that this election, as the month will be going by, as the months were going to go by, that it is going to be getting more uglier and more intense. He also said that this election will have a very polarizing nature, where regardless of who wins, half of the country will not be accepting the results of the election. And honestly, if we look back, his prediction couldn't have honestly been further from the truth. Definitely, one thing that can be said is that this campaign between the Republican and the Democrats, however you want to put it, has been having a lot of turns. To begin with, we have seen the whole controversy Trump had in the court case with regards to Stormy Daniels, and then we have seen the whole Biden saga when he was having a lot of gaffes, when he was dropping out, and the debate which he had, which went very poorly on his side. And then on the other hand, we even saw RFK, who a lot of people expected to have just been a third party candidate as an independent. He ended up dropping out and endorsed Donald Trump. Another thing that has also been largely unique were the assassination attempts which were done on Donald Trump. Despite him also being controversial in 2020 and 2016, no assassination attempts were done, whereas in this year alone, 3 assassination attempts were done on his life, all which had failed. As we go and analyze the whole election, there are a lot of benefits which Donald Trump does have. To begin with, in the month of October, Donald Trump consistently has been increasing in popularity, and it is pretty reasonable to say that the Kamala surge was only a temporary event. Harris is not by a lot nationwide, and even if we consider Kamala Harris even just being a little bit up nationwide, even if she wins a popular vote, it does not correlate to her winning the presidential election. Donald Trump lost the popular vote in 2016, but he did end up winning the presidential election as he had more electoral votes. Also, another thing that is also interesting to look at is although Democrats may be underestimated in some states more in the South, Republicans do have a chance in the Rust Belt to make large gains, since in the Rust Belt or in the Midwest, those are states which Republicans are generally underestimated. A good example where it could be very fair to say is Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin both underestimated Donald Trump in both 2016 and 2020. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was expected to win that state pretty easily. That did not end up happening as Donald Trump ended up winning that state. In 2020, although Joe Biden did win the state, the margin which Joe Biden won was not compared to what the polls had indicated. And considering how Kamala Harris is not up by a whole lot, it would be pretty reasonable to say that Donald Trump does have a good upper hand in that state. If you also look at some other states within the Rust Belt or the Midwest, there would be almost a similar contrast that can be made. Although the margin is not definitely safe for Donald Trump to have the White House in his bag, there's a pretty relative good chance that he will be having more than 270 electoral votes. Donald Trump does have a lot of good odds of winning, especially if we look at how many articles within the internet and within polling, they say that his chance of victory, not his polling, but his chance of victory, is higher than what was even suggested in his first debate, which he had with Joe Biden. As I also said, his polling is at better odds than Kamala, considering how the Republican Party usually gets underestimated in within the Midwest region. Even in some states, such as Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is winning by a slight margin, and in Michigan, Kamala Harris is even winning by less than 1%. The only state which could have Donald Trump slightly overestimated is the state of Nevada, because as we can see in the 2022 U.S. Senate election, Republicans were quite overestimated, but the Democrats ended up winning by a very slight margin that could have made the election gone either way. Therefore, it is possible to see that Nevada could be a state that goes blue. There are many reasons as far as why Donald Trump has the campaign unwritten his trail ideally, because one issue that's very important for the average American is the economy. And one thing that's very clear is that this is an economy which is not popular amongst the average American. Although most Americans are split if Joe Biden or Donald Trump had the better economy, this economy nonetheless is still unpopular, and given how many Americans experienced what the Trump economy was more like, especially how unemployment was like at 3% at one point, there's a notable contrast that can be, there's a notable comparison that could be made within the whole economic life between those two tenures. With that being said, since the incumbent is having an unpopular economy, it does give room for Donald Trump to be able to appeal swing voters in that case. Another huge problem is also conflicts which are rising in the world. One problem is, as a lot of conflicts are rising in the world, especially with the war in Ukraine and the war in Gaza, these are seen as irresponsibilities on within the Democrats' part. And Donald Trump himself has tried to make the appeal that since nothing has happened in Ukraine within his 4 years, and that how he had better relations with Putin, and how if the war ends, that would mean like not a continuation of aid to Ukraine. And also he has had very ambitious goals with regards to ending the war. He says he's going to be able to end it when he's in office pretty quickly. He even says he could start getting it negotiated once he's president-elect. Therefore, we can see that, like, at least with regards to issues like those, Donald Trump does have more appeal. And that way, Donald Trump will be able to also have appeal is with the situation in Gaza, as that's also seen another irresponsibility on Joe Biden's part, especially as in Michigan, where there's a huge Arab American community. Donald Trump has been able to hold some appeal to them, which he did not necessarily have in 2020 or the 2016 campaign, which he had. Even if you look at 2020 where Donald Trump lost, that still was a quite winnable election for him. However, there were controversies with regards to his messaging, as his messaging wasn't as appealing compared to the messaging the Democrats had. And also, if we take a look at the COVID pandemic, which made him controversial in some sense. These are issues which, at least for the COVID part, which is non-existent anymore, and his messaging has objectively improved more, or at least if it didn't improve more, it was able to resonate with Americans more since he's not the sitting incumbent. Also, issues like the border are as well a massive issue to many people, and that is also another reason why more people are having appeal towards Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. Now going into the Senate, I do think the Democrats will be getting 49 seats and the Republicans will be getting 51 seats. One state which will be interesting to look at is Arizona. Despite I do think Donald Trump having the upper hand in Arizona, if we look at polling for the Arizona Senate election, there's a huge comparison to be made. To begin with, Kari Lake, who is controversial in some sense, although Donald Trump is controversial, Kari Lake does not hold the same appeal that Donald Trump is able to make. And since Democrats are largely up in the polls, I do not really see the Republicans being able to win that state. I do believe Republicans can have a path of success through West Virginia and Montana. West Virginia, the sitting incumbent is a Blue Dog senator, Joe Manchin, and since he's no longer going to be running for re-election, that has been able to give some room for Republicans to try to flip that state. And since Republicans are quite high in polling in that state, it would be fairly reasonable to say that seat will be flipping red. Montana, the candidate is going to be running for re-election. However, Republicans are quite up by polling, even though the candidate is also, as people say, a blue dog senator, one who's more on the moderate side of the Democratic Party. It would still be reasonable to say Republicans will be able to flip that seat. Other states that should be as well looked is the states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. The Democrat candidate is up by a reasonable margin in Michigan, and I do not think the margin will be too far off for Republicans. However, I do think it would be reasonable to say that Democrats will be able to win that seat. Pennsylvania, although again it's an airtight race and that there's a good chance that Pennsylvania will be going red in the presidential election, it's kind of hard to see McCormick being Bob Casey Jr. because even if we look at the last election in the Senate with regards to Mehmet Oz and John Fetterman, Mehmet Oz even had a little bit of a surge where he was even higher in polling than John Fetterman was. However, all that aside, he still ended up losing the election, so it's a little bit difficult to try to forecast in some ways how that seat will be going red. Sherrod Brown, in my opinion, will probably be winning the state of Ohio, and that state will be remaining blue, although one appeal I guess that the Democrats had in 2018, especially in some states where that Donald Trump may have had some unfavorability, as that's usually normal in midterm elections for a first-term president. I still think that, again, in our close margin race, but it's in our state that will be going Democrat. Let me know how you feel about the video. Let me know if you liked it, completely hated it. Feel free to share your own thoughts. Please share the video, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Have a blessed day.